Have you ever noticed that your mind doesn't wait for the world to attack, it attacks you first? You're lying in bed, nothing's wrong. And yet, there it is. That quiet buzz in your chest, that tightening in your stomach, a creeping tension that whispers, something's off. But nothing's happened. So why does it feel like something always is? Alan Watts had a brutal, liberating answer. Because you've been trained to suffer in advance. You've been taught that to be responsible means to be afraid. That to stay ahead in life, you must anticipate every disaster. That peace is lazy, and worry is wisdom. So we live with our fists clenched and our minds spinning, not because danger is near, but because we've been conditioned to expect it. This is anxiety, not a flaw, not a disease, but a system glitch. A result of living in a culture that worships the future and punishes the present. Watts said, "Anxiety is the fear that one of a pair of opposites might cancel the other. But if you're going to survive, you must live with both." In other words, you suffer because you keep trying to choose only half of life. You want safety without risk, growth without pain, love without rejection, life without death. And every time you try to cling to only the good, you fear the bad will sneak up behind you. So you watch for it, prepare for it, guard against it, and in that constant watching, you miss your life. The tragedy? No one told you this is optional. No one told you that the fear you feel when you slow down isn't your soul warning you. It's your programming glitching. We were raised in a world that says be afraid or be naive. But Watts flipped the script. He said, "You are not here to worry yourself into safety. You are here to wake up to the fact that safety was never the point. That's the real source of your suffering. You keep trying to make life controllable. But life isn't a spreadsheet. It's a dance. And your anxiety is the pain of trying to choreograph a dance that was meant to be improvised." So let's ask something bold. What if anxiety isn't a sign you're broken, but a sign you're resisting the flow? Watts believed that peace doesn't come from locking everything down. It comes from letting go of the illusion that you ever could. He said, "The real you is not a puppet which life pushes around. The real, deep down you is the whole universe." That sounds abstract, until you realize what it actually means. The voice in your head that's terrified of missing out, messing up, or falling behind. That voice isn't the real you. It's the echo of everything you've been told. It's your parents' fears, your school's rules, society's scripts. And when you mistake that noise for your own soul, you panic. Because deep down, you know something's off. You know life wasn't meant to feel like a performance review. You know there's something raw and honest underneath it all that's trying to come through. Watts called that awakening. An awakening doesn't mean escaping pain. It means stopping the cycle of running from it. It means asking, what am I really afraid of? Not the bills, not the deadlines, not the breakup, but this moment, this stillness, this unfiltered encounter with being alive. Because here's the real secret Alan Watts knew. Anxiety doesn't thrive in presence. It only survives in projections. So when you stop escaping this moment and actually enter it, everything starts to shift. Not instantly, not neatly, but deeply. You start to see that your anxiety isn't who you are. It's just what happens when you try to micromanage a universe that was never under your control. And when that clicks, you stop clinging. You start listening. And for the first time in a long time, you breathe. You don't want control. You want to feel safe. And somewhere along the line, those two things got confused. You were told if you plan hard enough, achieve enough, predict every outcome, and rehearse every possibility, then you'll finally be okay. Then the chaos will stop. Then the future won't feel like a threat. But Alan Watts saw right through that lie. He said, to put it still more plainly, the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. To hold your breath is to lose your breath. Let that sink in. The tighter you cling, the less you can hold. The more you plan, the more fragile you feel. Because the moment your safety depends on your control, your entire peace of mind is hostage to a world that doesn't listen to your plans. And it never has. The truth is, life isn't a problem to be solved. It's an experience to be lived. But when you treat it like a threat, when you treat every unknown like an enemy, you spend your entire existence running from shadows. That's what anxiety is. It's not just fear. It's your resistance to the fact that nothing is certain and never will be. Watts said, "The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless." And yet we try to lock everything down. Our routines, our relationships, our emotions. We turn life into a checklist, safety into a ritual. But life doesn't care about your checkboxes. It moves, it shifts, it dissolves. And every time you try to pin it down, you suffer. Because you've been taught to see change as danger. But Watts saw change as the only constant. He didn't just accept uncertainty, he welcomed it. He once asked, "What would you do if money were no object?" It wasn't a question about finance. It was about fear. Because money for most people represents control. And once you remove it from the equation, you're left with something terrifying. Freedom. And freedom, Watts reminded us, isn't comfortable. It's not having everything go your way. It's realizing you don't need it to. The illusion of control keeps you trapped in anxiety because it sells you a false promise that if you work hard enough, worry hard enough, stay vigilant enough, you can prevent pain. But that's not how life works. Watts said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." But you were never taught to let things be. You were taught to fix, to manage, to strive, to never stop tweaking the system. And so even your peace becomes effortful. But real peace, it's not something you engineer, it's something that emerges once you stop trying to dominate every moment and start showing up for it. It's not passivity, it's alignment. It's not about giving up, it's about giving in to the rhythm, the flow, the wild unpredictability of being alive. And here's where it gets radical. What if your anxiety isn't the problem? Your control is. What if your obsession with getting everything right is the very thing making everything feel wrong? Watts didn't say stop planning. He said stop depending on your plans for happiness. He didn't say don't care. He said care without clinging. Act without attachment. Move without needing guarantees. Because the moment you start trusting the process, even a little, is the moment anxiety loses its grip. And you'll notice something weird. Your body softens, your thoughts slow down. And in that pause, you realize you were never in control. You were never supposed to be. But you are here. And for now, that's enough. You've been running, not from danger, but from something deeper. From the fear that you, as you are, aren't enough. That if you don't push harder, be better, fix every flaw, you'll lose love, respect, worth. That fear is what we call anxiety. Not the loud kind that screams, but the quiet hum that never stops. And Alan Watts understood where it comes from. He saw that society has sold us a toxic ideal. That worth must be earned. That peace must be purchased. That perfection is the goal, and you are perpetually just a few steps short. And so you chase. You chase the better body, the higher status, the perfect version of yourself, who never breaks down, never stumbles, never doubts. But Watts said, man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. You turned life into a test, and failure became your greatest fear. But Watts saw something else, that your constant need to improve isn't strength, it's the root of your suffering. Because here's the truth. There is no version of you that will silence the fear if the fear is that you're fundamentally broken. You think if you become perfect, you'll finally relax. But perfection doesn't free you. It enslaves you. Because once your peace is tied to getting everything right, any mistake becomes a crisis. You panic when things aren't going according to plan because your worth is riding on the outcome. You get crushed by minor failures because you thought they were proof. Proof that you're not there yet. Proof that you don't deserve peace. But Watts asked us a better question. What if there is no destination? What if you're not here to reach some flawless version of yourself? What if your job isn't to chase perfection, but to remember your wholeness? See, perfection is static. It's dead. It's untouchable. But you're alive. Messy, unfinished. And that's the point. You don't grow by becoming flawless. You grow by shedding the illusion that flawlessness was ever required. Anxiety keeps you stuck in the belief that something is always missing, that you're almost there. If only you could fix this one more thing, and then another, and another. But Watts flipped that completely. He reminded us that the universe isn't a machine. It's a dance. No one's trying to win the dance. You're just meant to feel it, to move with it, to lose yourself in the rhythm, not to master every step. And that means dropping the obsession with arriving. The idea that your value lies in future accomplishments is the ultimate trap. Because even when you make it, your mind won't stop moving the goalposts. It's trained to seek, not to settle. And that's why perfection doesn't bring peace, it brings pressure. So what do? You stop chasing and you start listening to your exhaustion, to your breath, to the quiet knowing underneath all the noise that maybe, just maybe, you're allowed to exist without earning it. Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves." That's the sickness of modern life. We've replaced being with becoming, peace with productivity, presence with performance. And we wonder why we're anxious. You were never meant to hustle your way into worth. You were meant to realize you already had it. That realization isn't glamorous. It won't go viral. It won't earn applause. But it will free you. Because when you stop running, you remember you were never incomplete, just convinced you were. What if the very thing you're gripping so tightly is what's making you suffer? Anxiety often disguises itself as control. We obsess over plans, routines, relationships, desperate to keep things in place. We call it being responsible, motivated, ambitious. But underneath it all is fear. Fear that if you let go, everything will collapse. That if you stop managing every outcome, you'll fall apart. Alan Watts saw through that illusion. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Most people are drowning, not because they're weak, but because they're trying too hard to stay afloat. They've been taught to never loosen their grip, always plan, always anticipate, always be one step ahead. But Watts asked the uncomfortable question, what are you really afraid of? Losing control? Or realizing you never had it to begin with? The truth is, life doesn't obey your rules. The more you try to force it, the more it resists. The more you fight the current, the more it drags you under. And that's why anxiety grows, not from chaos, but from your refusal to let go of order. Control is comforting, but it's also an illusion. That job you planned for could vanish tomorrow. That relationship you depended on might outgrow you. That version of the future you're holding on to could crumble in seconds. And when that happens, you panic, because your peace was never real, it was conditional. Watts challenged this mindset directly. The real you is not a puppet that life pushes around. The real deep down you is the whole universe. He believed your anxiety comes from thinking you are separate from others, from nature, from the flow of reality itself. You try to manage life like it's a project, instead of experiencing it like it's a song. And when things go off beat, you tighten up, you try harder, you clench. But music isn't supposed to be controlled. It's supposed to be danced with. The paradox of anxiety is this: the more you try to avoid discomfort, the more it controls you. The more you try to force peace, the more elusive it becomes. Real peace doesn't come from mastering life, it comes from surrendering to it, from trusting the fall, from knowing that even when things break, you won't. Letting go isn't about giving up, it's about giving in. to the rhythm of life that you've been fighting against. But it's scary, because letting go means stepping into uncertainty. It means you can't predict what's next. It means being okay with mess, with silence, with not having all the answers. But here's the thing, you never did anyway. So what would happen if you stopped pretending? What would happen if just for once, you unclenched your fists? If you stopped fighting the current and let it carry you? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's the moment when anxiety begins to lose its grip. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop demanding it to be perfect. Watts taught that surrender isn't the end of responsibility. It's the beginning of presence. You don't have to control the future to find peace in the now. You don't have to anticipate every danger to be safe in your own skin. You just have to stop running. Let the thoughts come. Let the fears swirl. And still, stay open. Still, breathe. Still, float. Because when you do, something strange happens. You start to trust, not blindly, but deeply. And in that trust, anxiety loses its reason to exist, because there's nothing left to protect yourself from. You're not gripping the water anymore. You're swimming. Why do you always feel like something's missing? Even on the good days, when nothing's wrong, there's still that buzz beneath the surface, that background hum of unease. You feel like you should be doing more, fixing more, achieving more. And even when you hit the goal, the anxiety doesn't stop. It just shifts, evolves, finds a new target. Why? Because you're operating under a fundamental lie, that you are separate, separate from others, separate from nature, separate from reality. Alan Watts didn't just talk about anxiety, he traced it to its roots. And what he uncovered was this: we suffer from a hallucination, from a false and distorted sensation of our own existence as living organisms. You think of yourself as a skin-encapsulated ego, a little me trapped inside a body, navigating a hostile world, always one step away from loss or failure or pain. But that's not who you really are. That's the illusion. The real you isn't separate at all. It's part of everything. Just like a wave is part of the ocean, you are part of the universe. You don't come into this world, you come out of it, like a leaf from a tree. But the moment you believe you're isolated, anxiety becomes inevitable. You start to think it's all on you, that you have to fix everything, that if you mess up, it's over, that the world is out there and you are in here alone and vulnerable. And that illusion, that separation, creates panic, because now you think you're navigating life like a soldier on enemy ground. But Watts says that's not reality. That's a glitch in perception. You are the universe experiencing itself. Think about that. You're not some helpless individual dropped into chaos. You are life itself. You're not in the flow. You are the flow. So where does the anxiety go when you remember that? It doesn't vanish overnight, but it changes. It softens. Because the panic comes from a misunderstanding. You're not lost. You've just been trying to carry what was never yours to carry. When you realize you're not separate, your fear of failure loses its power. Because the universe doesn't make mistakes, it evolves, it experiments, it plays. That mistake you're haunted by, it was part of the rhythm. That detour in your life, it was the path. Watts urged people to stop trying to fight life and start flowing with it. But here's the thing, that shift doesn't start with belief. It starts with perception. You have to see through the illusion. See that your thoughts are not you. See that your problems are not separate from the world. They are expressions of the world, just like trees, rivers, and storms. You don't need to win life. You just need to live it. Not like a warrior in a battle, but like a dancer in a movement, sometimes fast, sometimes still, sometimes out of step, but always part of something bigger. And when you truly understand that, anxiety starts to lose its grip. Not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer alone inside it. Because the you that was scared was never real to begin with. So here's a new question to live by. What if you're not an anxious person? What if you're just a connected being, believing a lie. Because when you stop clinging to the illusion of the separate self, something incredible happens. You stop needing to control. You stop needing to prove. You stop needing to escape. And in that stillness, in that presence, anxiety finds no home. Watts didn't promise comfort. He promised awakening, not an escape from life, but a full immersion in it. No boundaries, no illusions, just the raw, messy, beautiful truth. You're not alone. You never were. You just forgot. The word surrender makes most people flinch. It sounds like quitting, like giving up, like weakness. But Alan Watts flips that idea on its head, because to him, surrender isn't defeat. It's the only way to be free. Not free in the political sense. Not free as in doing whatever you want, like whenever you want. He meant existential freedom, the kind that unchains your mind from the grip of anxiety. See, anxiety is the mind trying to control what it can't, trying to force certainty onto a life that never promised it. It's a clenched fist trying to stop a river. And what Watts teaches is this: the harder we try to catch hold of the moment, to seize a pleasant sensation, the more elusive it becomes. You've lived this. You've tried to fix everything, plan everything, micromanage life to make it safe. But no matter how tight you grip, things still fall apart. People still disappoint. Life still changes without your permission, because control is an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to feel less afraid. And here's the paradox. The more you try to control life, the more anxious you become. But the moment you let go, the moment you surrender to the flow, you feel a strange kind of power. Not the power to dominate, the power to trust, to breathe, to live. Surrender, as Watts describes it, is not passive. It's not apathy. It's not saying nothing matters. It's saying, I'm done pretending I'm the master of the universe. And in that moment, something shifts. You stop resisting what's happening, and you start responding to it. You stop reacting out of fear and start acting from presence. This is the heart of liberation, because your anxiety isn't caused by what's happening, it's caused by your resistance to what's happening. Surrender removes the resistance. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing everything to go your way to feel okay. You stop fighting the current and start swimming with it. Imagine the energy that frees up when you stop resisting your feelings. When you stop arguing with reality. When you stop obsessing over what might go wrong. Watts said it best. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Let go of your grip and you rise. But we've been trained to do the opposite. From childhood, we're taught to control, to predict, to dominate. We measure success by how well we bend life to our will. And so surrender feels like failure. But Watts would say, it's the beginning of wisdom. Because when you surrender, you don't become helpless. You become honest. You stop lying to yourself about what's in your control. You stop pretending the unknown can be conquered. You meet life where it is, and in that meeting, you find clarity. Not answers, always, but clarity. A deep knowing that whatever comes, you can move through it. That doesn't mean you won't feel fear, but you won't be ruled by it. Because once you surrender, fear has nowhere to take root. It doesn't mean giving up your goals or desires. It means giving up your attachment to how it has to happen. You show up, you do the work, but you let go of the outcome. And that's where peace lives, not in control, but in connection. Surrender brings you back to the present. Not the fake present we talk about on social media, the real one. The one that exists before the story, beneath the panic. The one where everything just is. You can't grasp that moment. You can only enter it by letting go. And that's the irony. You've been chasing peace like it's something to achieve. But peace isn't something you get by force. It's what shows up when you stop forcing. So maybe the question isn't, how do I control my anxiety? Maybe it's, what am I afraid will happen if I stop controlling everything? Sit with that. And then ask this. If surrender isn't weakness, What if it's the strongest thing I've never tried? Because once you surrender, truly surrender, anxiety loses its anchor. And what's left isn't numbness, it's presence, it's clarity, it's freedom. If this message spoke to you, if even one line cracked the shell of your anxiety, don't let it fade. Like, share, and comment below with what hit you the hardest. And most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. These teachings aren't just ideas, they're tools. Tools for reclaiming your mind, your freedom, your life. The journey doesn't end here. So stay curious, stay open, and stay with us. Because every video, every word, is another step toward the peace you thought you'd never find. This is your path now. Walk it, and let go completely.